Welcome to the morning after, the sports morning show designed to be watched while eating your morning bowl of cereal or drinking your morning cup of coffee. Maybe you had an omelet this morning. You let us know in the comments. But we are here to talk about day 2 of NBA free agency. It is 11:58 Eastern Standard Time at the time of recording. I am here with my very good friend Bryce Cohen. And Bryce, yesterday was an eventful day to say the least. I can easily say this day was much duller, but still a fun day. I mean, how are you feeling going into day 3 tomorrow?
Well, I gotta say, we had a lot of interesting news come out today. More news, more rumors, per se, than signings and trades that happened today. But there was for sure some really interesting things that happened today that are going to lead into a super interesting day 3, perhaps day 4. But the NBA offseason has not disappointed to this point.
Not in the slightest. I mean, Benchwarmer Banter has basically become a basketball account. But that's expected in the drought of sports seasons that, June, July, a little bit of August become. But, I mean, let's start off. I am very happy as a New Jersey native and a diehard New York Knicks fan to announce we signed Donte Divincenzo today, 4 years, $50 million. NBA champion with the Bucks a few years ago. Won a national title in 2018 on Villanova with Josh Hart and Jalen Brunson, who are currently on the Knicks. I mean, this is our biggest free agent signing since Randall. I do think it's a little bit bigger than that. I think a lot of Knicks fans are happier about it than we were when we got Randall off the bat. But I'll say this is probably the biggest buzz about a new player coming to New York since Carmelo Anthony, debatably.
Well, you have to look at it, too. We signed Jalen Brunson last season. We also signed Julius Randle a few seasons ago. We are consistently getting a steady flow of playoff caliber, championship-winning players, which, by the way, that Villanova connection between Josh Hart, Jalen Brunson, and Divincenzo is something seriously worth noting. That is team chemistry right there. And you look at players in this league that like to team up with each other. They love that team chemistry. And I think the fact that they have won a championship together, whether it was NCAA or not, that is extremely difficult to do. To translate that into the NBA would be huge, and to do it in New York is going to be amazing.
Now, I could be wrong, but I don't think we've ever seen 3 players from the same college of this caliber that we have on the Knicks now ever in NBA history. I mean, especially on the same team. The last time these 3 were on the court, they were cutting down the nets and celebrating with confetti after winning the national title, which is insane to me. I don't think we've seen a team up quite like this. And the Villanova boys are back. I'm happy about it. Last year, we saw Divincenzo average 9.4 points a game, 4.5 rebounds a game, and 3.5 assists per game in 72 games with Golden State, which was his most games played in a season to this point. He's had 2 seasons that kind of had the injury bug where he played under 50. I'm really happy with this signing, even though the 9.4 points a game will scare some people away. This was Giannis's right-hand man when Chris Middleton wasn't there. I mean, this guy was the number 1 option on that Villanova team. People were calling him the Michael Jordan from Delaware. He was a bucket on that team. I really think the Knicks finally made a great decision in free agency and started playing basketball like the rest of the league does in the months between June and October. I mean, it's been rough my entire tenure as a Knicks fan. And I'll genuinely say I smiled seeing that we got Divincenzo, and also on a great deal, in my opinion, as well. $12.5 million a year is not bad by any means when we've seen so many people overpay all offseason. Great job by the Knicks.
And when you want to look about this New York Knicks roster as well, they obviously as well, which was also in the news today, traded away Obi Toppin for 2 second-round draft picks. And while that was for some people, a head-scratching decision, Tom Thibodeau was not utilizing Obi Toppin in the way that he needed to be utilized. Him and Julius Randle would not share the court well with each other. That would be a small ball lineup. It was bound that Toppin was not going to be a New York Knick for much longer. And the fact that they were able to dump that contract off, as well as getting some assets in return as well, it's just showing that not only are the Knicks gearing up to make a big push to the playoffs now, because basically they traded away Obi Toppin for the ability to sign Divincenzo, but they also now have assets where if there is a disgruntled star in this league that wants to get out, and we know this happens. It happens year in and year out. A star is on a team that's not competitive, or there's something going on in the locker room. They want to get out, and they need to go to a team that has the assets where both teams will be able to make a fair trade. And the New York Knicks now have the trade assets, they have the players, and all of a sudden, they're kind of just one puzzle piece away from being potentially a top 1 or 2 seed in the Eastern Conference. You think about it, too. Every team in the Eastern Conference is going to have to look out for Miami with Damian Lillard potentially on the horizon. And yet, not that many teams are loading up as much as perhaps the Knicks have with assets. They have so many draft selections, maybe the most other than Brooklyn in the Eastern Conference, that the Knicks may just get one of the best stars in the league within the next 6 months or so.
And a little shout out to Toppin. I mean, once a Knick, always a Knick. One of our 4, if I'm not wrong, slam dunk championships. But yeah, it was sour grapes for me. I like Obi Toppin as a Knick, and I liked what he did any time he played over 25 minutes a game. He did incredible things, and I think it could be looked up as a little bit of a hiccup in whatever we're trying to build. I like this new Indiana trio that might form of Obi Toppin, Tyrese Haliburton, and Bruce Brown. I'm a big fan of what's happening in the East. I personally predict the Knicks to go 4th. I think Miami is obviously the number 1 seed in this conference. 2, 3, that's a little tough for me to decide at the moment. There's still a few big moves to be made. But I kind of want to get into why I think Miami's the number 1 seed. You touched on it a second ago, and you actually predicted it yesterday, so I'm going to let you talk all about it. Damian Lillard requests a trade today. Bryce, how do you feel about this?
Well, I think this is something that was on the horizon. We expected some sort of rumbling, but very confusing for Damian Lillard to wait to request a trade after the Trailblazers made some free agent splashes. It's obviously very weird for Damian Lillard to request a trade now after Jeremy Grant was already signed to that huge extension that the Trailblazers signed him to. Perhaps the Trailblazers were maybe caught off guard by this. But Damian Lillard, in the news today, it was stated that he only wanted to go to Miami. Miami is his destination. But the thing is for the Trailblazers, if they're not going to get the package they want from Miami to get Damian Lillard in return, they won't make that trade. They're not just going to give him up because that's where Damian Lillard wants to go. Of course, he's been one of the most loyal Portland Trailblazers ever. He's been with the franchise for 11 years now. They're not just going to give him away. He's a future Hall of Famer and one of the best Trailblazers ever. They're not going to just give him away for nothing. So I'd imagine if Miami makes this trade, which I am fairly confident they will, it's going to take a huge toll on their depth and all of their assets. And there's a chance that, sure, they're going to be stacked with Adebayo, Butler, and Lillard. But who knows where Tyler Hero might go or Duncan Robinson, because they're going to have to trade away some of their pieces to get a player of his. I mean, he's coming off of a 32-point-per-game average season just a year ago. You don't see players like that getting traded every year. He is a once-in-a-blue-moon player to hit the market like this. So it's very interesting to see how it all unfolds. And the biggest thing some of the experts are saying right now is that it's looking like it's going to be a 3-team trade in order for not only the Trailblazers, but Miami to be able to pull this off too. So we're going to have to really wait and see what the details are going to be to make a Damian Lillard to Miami reunion, excuse me, a connection like that to happen. But this is going to be one of, if not the most groundbreaking trades that Miami has made since LeBron even signed there. It's going to be one of the biggest moves they've made since LeBron signed back in 2012.
And I absolutely think it is the biggest move Miami's made since LeBron. And I mean, it's been photoshopped and rumored for 5 years now. Damian Lillard to Miami, I mean, just like a lot of free agents are, but I give that a 99% chance. I really do think that's just where he's going to end up. I think it's written in stone almost. But what I liked was the rumor about San Antonio, about him having great respect for them. Why say that in the midst of all this? Because it's totally possible that Miami can't get the trade done. And Dame has to pick another place because he already requested a trade. I really doubt he comes on the floor next year as a Blazer for even a preseason game. So San Antonio is a dark horse in this because they do have a lot to give up. They have, an entire team's future, basically. We've seen a few teams jump the gun like this. The Clippers, for example, and many other teams that won't have draft picks like the Suns until 2039. It could be a move San Antonio could make, just giving away their future for Dame. And it'd be a weird one because Damian Lillard and Wembanyama is my favorite duo in NBA history before they've even touched the court. But I want to talk about one more. Philadelphia was rumored for a minute, and I feel like Philadelphia was only rumored because of all the problems that they've had this offseason and also since the playoffs. But Philadelphia with Dame would probably be the best fan experience. I mean, games in Philly with Dame would be so fun, and that crowd would just eat it up. He would probably be the hottest thing since Iverson for them. And I mean, they could get it done. I think it's possible. It would take a lot from Philly, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. I think Dame could end up in a lot of places, but wherever he goes, I think they are a top 3 contender in the league next year, and that's how big of a player Dame is. Easily the biggest player this offseason be moved. I mean, you talked about that 32.2 points per game. That's crazy to me that we're just talking about this guy getting traded and not signing somewhere or anything like that. The Trailblazers, this is heavy on how their team looks historically. Did they give Dame a trade or did they make him sit out a season or something like that? I doubt it'll come to that. But this is a turning point for the Trailblazers. I mean, they, like I said last night, shot themselves in the foot with Jeremy Grant. Awful, awful, awful decision. But with their future, it's Scoot Henderson time. And let's talk about the future of a team that's a little bit different this year. The Los Angeles Lakers. Day 2, another fantastic job. And let's start with the one where I thought this guy was going somewhere else. Austin Reeves resigns 4 years, $56 million, kind of got screwed by the market. How do you feel about AR-15 staying in Los Angeles?
Well, when you look at Austin Reeves, this is a guy that people, when they made that playoff run up into the Western Conference Finals, it was kind of predicted that Reeves would get maybe a 4-year, $80 million contract. So for Reeves to not only re-sign with the Lakers, but to do it on a bit of a discount to what some media experts were thinking about what his value could be, he kind of took a hometown discount. I mean, he fits in perfectly with what the Lakers need. They need him as a shooter. They need him to help with keeping the ball under control. And I think he fits in perfectly, not only with what the team was last year, but where they are moving forward. They have so many assets and players where, if, let's just say hypothetically, LeBron James were to sit out a season or sit out until the postseason, because that is something that was talked about at the end of the Western Conference Finals. LeBron is uncertain about his future. The Lakers are still a playoff team, even if LeBron James doesn't play, which is something that when you then add in LeBron James, this is a team that is the best in the Western Conference, without a doubt. You have players that have re-signed with the team, such as D'Angelo Russell, Austin Reeves, as well as getting these pieces as well from kind of all over the place. I think Gabe Vincent, we talked about yesterday, is going to fit in with that mold perfectly. This is a Lakers team that is locked and reloaded for this season, and they're going to be the team to beat in the Western Conference. And I think the Nuggets, obviously they just came off of a title, but they're going to have to fight that championship hangover after losing Bruce Brown, and as well as not making any real big splashes this free agency. They're going to have to really come out in the regular season and prove that they're the best team in the Western Conference Because the Lakers are stacked this year.
While this NBA offseason has been dull, I really think that this NBA season incoming is going to be one of the most fun seasons we've had in the last couple of years. Even with not that many moves happening, a lot of teams are getting better without having to switch out the entire team. The Lakers re-signing 2 players today was a huge proving point of that. I mean, D'Angelo Russell's back on the team, getting paid $37 million over 2 years. Jackson Hayes joins the team, 2 years. The numbers haven't been released yet on that one. This is a solid bench with a solid starting lineup. I honestly can say, without a doubt, through the first 2 days, there's still 12 to go, the Los Angeles Lakers have won this free agency. But I want to hop right into a team that I think has possibly lost this free agency just by the amount of money they've spent. The Houston Rockets have done it again. I mean, they made some better decisions later in the day, but I thought Dillon Brooks' market would be so small because of how much of a headache he was the entire season in Memphis. I'm not saying he didn't play well. I'm just saying no one wanted to talk about that guy by the end of the season. He was a lot to deal with on already dramatic Grizzlies team with the whole Ja situation. But Houston, a team we just talked about last night, shot themselves in the foot a little bit with Fred VanVleet's contract, signed Dillon Brooks to a 4-year, $80 million deal. I just don't understand this in the slightest. I mean, Dillon Brooks, not that bad of a player. We're talking $20 million a year now, which is just absurd to me. I mean, VanVleet and Brooks aren't the duo that anybody is really expecting to see bring them to a Western Conference Finals. And also they signed Jock Landale and Jeff Green on very cheap deals. Jeff Green was a huge addition to this team. Jock Landale, I read about him today. Not a bad pickup. Great price, too. I mean, Houston, they're going to be a solid team. They're going to be a playoff team this year. They have talent across the board. But, I mean, in 3 years, this team's going to be looking to re-sign some of these players. Or in 2 years, they're going to be looking to re-sign or sign a new player. They're going to be so under in cap. And I don't think it's the amount of talent that some teams that do this do it for. I mean, I think this is an under-talented team for what they're getting paid.
Yeah, when you look at a player like Dillon Brooks, like you mentioned, he is a player that is getting paid off of what they think he can do. It's not like Draymond Green's deal where this is a championship player and he's a part of our core. Dillon Brooks is coming off of a season where he had all of his words and talk shoved right back into his face. And it hurt him. It hurt his reputation. It hurt the way he played towards the end of the season. At the end of the day, I don't see Dillon Brooks contributing to this Houston Rockets team all that much. Would I like to be proved wrong? 100%. But if you get the same production from VanVleet and Brooks from last season, this season, you're looking at the Houston Rockets sort of contending, maybe getting that 8 seed, that 7 seed, which given for the Western Conference would be great. But they're not going to be contending for a championship here. This isn't a roster built for a championship. It's going to be a lot of ups and downs for this Rockets team. If they don't get over the hump quickly in the beginning of the season, there's no chance they're going to even come close to a playoff spot.
And I couldn't agree more. I mean, these are also just untradeable contracts in next season, the season after that. I mean, VanVleet's, I think it will be a Rocket for the next 3 seasons. Brooks, though, the CBA increasing and such, and people will be getting paid more and more and more. In 3 years, maybe shipping them off for $20 million isn't as hard as I'm talking about right now, but I mean, $20 million a year for Dillon Brooks is just atrocious in my opinion. I mean, not only is he a headache in the media and just a loudmouth on and off the court, but he's also not worth $20 million a year. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts in my opinions. But I want to talk about a contract that really shocked me today, not because of it was unrealistic. It was very realistic, but it just proves that we are all growing up way too fast. Russell Westbrook signed a 2-year, $8 million deal staying with the Los Angeles Clippers. I mean, the Clippers, this is an A-plus signing for them. For Russell, this is just a chance to prove that he still has a spot in the league and he can still play the way he used to. No risk for the Clippers whatsoever. Worst comes to worst, they trade him and get draft capital and dump his salary, which is something they need after getting Kawhi and Paul George. And also, Russ did not play bad with the Clippers. 15.8 points a game in 21 games with LA in the regular season. But then in 5 games in the playoffs in their one series, Russell had 23.6 points a game, 7.6 rebounds a game, and 7.4 assists per game. That's why he got a contract in LA, in my opinion. I think there's probably other suitors for him, but the market was very odd this year, one of the weirdest in NBA history, debatably. And this is just a weird contract to me. I mean, this is like 2K when you start simming and there's not even draft classes left to get real players from, and Russell's signing 2-year, $8 million deals. I just can't believe one of my childhood heroes is signing for less than D'Angelo Russell and many more this year especially. Yeah, he's getting paid less than Dylan Brooks. Kind of surprises me a little bit.
At this point in Russell Westbrook's career, all the money that was there to be made has been made. At this point, staying with the Clippers on a cheap deal was probably the best thing for both sides. He obviously gets another chance to prove himself, like you said, but he also has found a home. And I think that's the best part about this. But what else this deal shows about the Clippers is they're still not ruling out the opportunity or the chance, dare say, of trading for James Harden, which would not be that far off of a reunion for Russell Westbrook and James Harden. Not only that, but to add Paul George and Kawhi Leonard into the mix, that's a team that can 100% contend in the West. Now, obviously, they would have to give up some pieces as well to get James Harden out of Philadelphia. But between the 4 of them, if 3 of them can stay healthy for the whole season, that's going to be a team to watch in the Western Conference. And if they can just click and all of them just be close, resemblant to themselves in the prime of their career, that's a team that is going to be scary to see in the postseason.
I'm terrified of the Clippers, honestly, since you said that. You kind of sold me on that. And we'll get into that James Harden potential trade later, but there's one more thing I want to hit on because this is one of one. You know, there's some greats all time in the world, Usain Bolt, Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Floyd Money Mayweather, Conor McGregor, just, you know, the GOATs, the best runs of all time, Linsanity, Kemba Walker, and March Madness. I mean, there's not many times you get to witness greatness, but it's great that I can recognize that we are. Dropping Dimes is having the greatest Twitter run in the history of Twitter. He had one account banned. Now he was dropping dimes 20. Now he's dropping dimes 50. But I'm just going to read off a list of things that this account has predicted correctly. Dame to Miami trade request 8 minutes before it was reported. Dylan Brooks and Fred VanVleet to Houston in the same tweet. The Knicks adding a star this offseason. Middleton re-signing. Strus to Cleveland. D'Lo, Hachimura, and Austin Reeves re-signing. Is he a time traveler? Is it Adam Silver? I have no idea. But, I mean, this is by far the craziest level of predicting I've ever seen in anything. I mean, this is generational what Dropping Dimes is doing, and he's on a run. That's all I can say about it.
It is really weird, though, because let's just say these all are predictions. Every single NBA insider is freaking out because of this. That's why his initial account was suspended so quickly. I mean, he's coming for Woj's job. It's very, very surprising the amount he's gotten correct and how timely it was as well. I think the biggest one that he spoke on as well that has not come to fruition yet, and that would be the one that would sell me if he does get this one correct, is if Karl Anthony Towns gets traded this offseason with that giant contract he has. If that ends up coming true, I'm willing to support the idea that that is Adam Silver tweeting that out. Because it is ridiculous how much he has gotten correct.
It's kind of terrifying. I mean, because there isn't a real answer to it because it's anonymous. I mean, you can say, oh, it's an NBA insider just trolling. I highly doubt it. This is the busiest time of the year for them. You can say it's somebody working in the league. I'm positive the league would have figured it out, or at least patting down the hatches so nothing else gets out. You can say that it's actually somebody predicting it, and if that's true, I don't have a job anymore either. I mean, this guy's going to make billions of dollars. Everyone's going to talk to this guy. I think his biggest shtick should be, like, he only comes out, like, at big times. Like, he goes silent for, like, 3 months, and then he's like, Gordon Hayward to Utah, and everyone's like, whoa, where did this come from? And, like, he just comes out of nowhere. That could be his whole thing. And, I mean, shout out to Dropping Dimes. I've never seen somebody talked about this much on Twitter. And, just really wacky stuff going on in the world. Speaking of wacky, here's 5 free agents I want to talk about that are still remaining. A few oddballs. This is one of the weirdest free agent classes ever, honestly. There's talent, but then there's some people that I wouldn't say are that talented, and they're getting signed for Brazilians of dollars. And then there's some players just sitting in free agency that could be picked up for $20 million. Let's start off with Miles Bridges. We talked about him yesterday, didn't make the cut. Now, I saw a tweet of a Knicks player recruiting Miles Bridges saying, tap in or something along those lines, recruiting him. I don't want him in New York, I'll say that much. But I think Charlotte is most likely where he's going to end up. That's what we said last night. Grant Williams from the Celtics is a fun one. I think the Celtics should try and keep him to just keep that chemistry like they've been doing most of free agency, being silent. Grant Williams isn't a bad option wherever he goes. But I couldn't think of a single team that needs Grant Williams, so I'm not even going to try and predict one. But I want to hear, what do you think could happen with Christian Wood?
Well, Christian Wood is an interesting case because this is a player who, amongst the league, is known for having all-star talent. He could be, if given the right tools, an all-star in this league, no question asked. But he has been bounced around this league like no other's business. And it's not even funny how he hasn't even found a team to hold on and be his home yet. I still think that Christian Wood would be a good fit with the Knicks. I think he'd be a great spot in that 8th or 9th man in the rotation, and he gets good minutes in. But it's really looking like he's going to be one of those last-ditch signings you see by one of these teams that can't really tell if they're going to contend or not. And maybe he goes back to Houston, but it's really looking like that's unlikely as well. I don't know how much money he's going to be able to get, too, because everybody is spending right now in the first couple of days. But expect Christian Wood's name to be one of the last ones called upon. Maybe, just maybe, he puts up the numbers everyone's expected him to have this year. But it's going to be for a team we don't expect. And I really can't see him going to a real contender. I can imagine him going to one of those bottom teams in the Eastern or Western conferences that is going to maybe try to compete but end up falling way short. It's going to be a weird one, though.
I could see Indiana trying to pick him up if he takes a cheap deal. That's the one. That's probably the best team that could get him. That would just be a great. They're just building something awesome over there if they do that. Another player that I could see going to these teams just trying to build up, P.J. Washington. I mean, Phoenix is still looking to probably add a couple guys. I bet the Lakers still got a spot or two. I guarantee Indiana's looking to level up a little bit. I could see P.J. Washington going Miami. Miami's always looking to try and add to that team, especially with not really knowing what's going to happen with this Dame trade yet. So I'm pretty sure they're probably going to stay frozen until the Dame trade happens. But P.J. Washington is going to be another Christian Wood situation. Day 8, day 9 of free agency, a random team picks him up, and you're like, okay, that looks weird in a different jersey. And the last free agent I really want to get into, Kelly Oubre. I heard, and Dropping Dimes predicted it. Could happen, you never know. Kelly Oubre to Phoenix? A reunion? How do you feel about Kelly Oubre back in Phoenix?
Well, I would love that for a depth signing. Obviously, he he most likely would not be starting with that team, but he's a player that contributed very well to that Phoenix team before he ended up being traded to the Thunder. That was the Chris Paul deal, but he's a player, once again, he's been bounced around a lot the last few seasons, but we know he is successful in Phoenix. And I can imagine him coming back to Phoenix and being one of those players that comes off the bench. He's one of those players where if they make a playoff run, he's going to be that guy that puts up the crazy numbers in the Western Conference Finals or maybe the NBA Finals, and then that ends up securing him an even larger deal. But I would expect Kelly Oubre to be coming in on maybe a $15 million one-year deal with maybe Phoenix, I can imagine. Maybe he goes back to Charlotte, but it's looking like it's more likely than not Phoenix. Phoenix needs a player like him to come back. He knows how the city is. He knows how the system operates there. And with Bradley Beal being, obviously their big trade acquisition this season, it's looking like the Phoenix Suns are also going to be one of those teams that are just locked and loaded in this Western Conference. And we've always talked about how the Western Conference is way better than the Eastern Conference. But at this point, there are just stars all over the board. Every team looks competitive this year. I mean, obviously there's a few that are like, all right, this team is selling right now. But right now, there's really not a huge discrepancy in talent amongst the league. I feel like it's very, very spread out. And we'll see where Oubre goes, but he's going to go to a team that really needs him, but he's probably not going to get the deal he wants.
And let's talk about the last person I kind of want to talk about to wrap things up here. Where is James Harden going? I mean, requested the trade. He's most likely out of Philly. If not, he's probably going to sit out the first portion of Philly next year. Or he might not get a trade until after free agency. I don't know, because Philly is really in a tough spot. But, I mean, where could you possibly see Harden? Because the two teams I'm thinking of are the Clippers and the Rockets. I think the Rockets is kind of impossible with their salaries right now, but it was rumored for a while that he wanted to play there. But so Clippers, how are you feeling about James Harden to the Clippers?
Well, I think at this point in not only free agency, but where James Harden is in his career, this is a very interesting trade that James Harden wants to be made. He opted into this deal that allows him to have $33.1 million this upcoming season with Philadelphia. And I think the reason he did that is because if he didn't opt into that contract, he was going to end up signing for much less elsewhere. But I think it comes down to either the Clippers or he stays in Philadelphia. Now, hear me out on this one, Shane. If the biggest reason why James Harden wanted out of Philadelphia is because he was struggling with that relationship and that connection with Coach Doc Rivers, they already gave Rivers the boot. They already brought in Nick Nurse as their next coach. Why doesn't James Harden, and I think that's why he opted into this deal as well, why doesn't he just kind of wait and just see what happens, maybe have some talks with some people in the front office, and just kind of try to figure out where it stands and where it's going forward with the franchise before they jump to making a trade? But other than that, I don't see any other team showing interest in a one-year rental of James Harden, who's on the back end of his career. He's 33 years old. He's not the 2018 James Harden we saw putting up a triple-double every night with 50 points and crazy step-back moves. He's more into that facilitating role. He's passing more. He's not as flashy as he was, but he's still putting up good numbers. The postseason consistency is still an issue. But I could see him legitimately staying in Philadelphia for another year if they just try to figure that out with Joel Embiid, as well as how it's going to be coached by Nick Nurse. Now, if he goes to the Clippers, that Clippers team is stacked, given they stay healthy. But I don't know if there's many other options for James Harden in this league.
No, James Harden's kind of in a tough position, same as Philly. And it's going to be an interesting offseason for them. They really have a lot of moves to make. I'm hoping to get Russell Jacob, one of our Philly guys, to talk about that soon. But if you enjoyed this episode of the podcast, leave a like. Check out the description for our link tree. Check out all of our socials. Also, if you want to stay updated with free agency live, I have an article that is live with the Dispatch. It's updated as frequently as I can with every signing deal, my reaction and grading. And it's been a lot of work. We're already 12 pages of paper into this. But this was a fun episode. Episode 4 was good. I want to make this a more regular thing as more stuff happens. It's just been with everybody working so hard, on the clock, not with this. It's been a little tough to get some episodes in, but we're hoping to be more consistent with it. I mean, Bryce, any big predictions? So, Bryce, any big predictions? He predicted the Dame to Miami trade request. What are you feeling going into day 3?
I think this last one that I want to make note of is going to be kind of out of left field. But I want the people to hear me out on this one. This one is not something that will happen potentially this offseason. But just think back to this in a few months from now. If something goes wrong in Dallas. If the Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic connection does not work out well, and this would be in direct part with Kyrie Irving signing that 3-year deal, there is a chance that Luka Doncic wants to trade out of Dallas. And I'm not saying that Luka Doncic would go to the Knicks, but there is a chance between the assets that Brooklyn has and New York has that they would be a suitable trade partner with Dallas if Luka Doncic wants out of Dallas. And I think that is something to really think about now that Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic are going to be pairing up together for at least the next 3 years. And it is going to be a very interesting dynamic given after how their last season ended. But we'll see how that works out in the first couple weeks of the season, the first couple months of the season. But if it's not the ideal pairing for Dallas, it might be time for Luka Doncic to move on. We've seen in this league that you are not rewarded by staying super loyal to a franchise. Look at Damian Lillard, 32, going on 33 years old, just now almost becoming a free man and being put onto a bigger stage in maybe Miami, maybe Philadelphia. But Luka Doncic, if he is not paying attention to what's happening there, he better start paying attention now. It does not reward you to stay super loyal to one franchise. You need to do what's in your best interest to go win a championship, and that could be something to look out for. So that's something that might be worth noting in the future. As for the next couple of days, see what happens with Pascal Siakam. Toronto's sort of blowing it up. Van Fleet walking was kind of one of those, all right, well, he wasn't the best contributor, but he still was a part of our championship run, and he put up good numbers for us when he was healthy. See what happens with Pascal Siakam. If there's a trade partner suitable there, but Toronto's going to be one of those teams that are going to be scraping the bottom of the barrel this year in the Eastern Conference, and it's not going to be great for them.
And I couldn't agree more on that one for Toronto. It's going to be rough. The Luka trade request would be insane, and if it happens, I owe you $5. I'll tell you that much. You'll be $5 richer if Luka requests a trade this season. And that would be Kyrie's, 75th, mess up in the league. I mean, kind of destroyed Cleveland by leaving, definitely just ruined Boston's, idea of what they were trying to do there. Brad Stevens quit coaching. Really messed up the Nets forever, and I wouldn't be shocked if he did the same thing in Dallas. That dude's a bull in a china shop everywhere he's been. But if you enjoyed this episode, like I said before, check out our socials in the link tree below. Everyone, have a great rest of your day. Happy Sunday also. Good morning, America. It's been a pleasure bringing you the news of NBA free agency. If you don't agree with us, also check out our Twitter and tweet at us mean things. We don't mind. But everyone, have a great rest of your morning. Have that lazy Sunday. Kick back. Stay up to date with the news. Turn on our post notifications. Have a good one. Peace out.